Hey guys, alright? Welcome everyone. In the surroundings of the small town of Cypress in Louisiana, we see a cozy house amidst a dense forest. A young woman named Bryn lives there. She lives alone, and in her routines, she observes her decorations and also enjoys sewing clothes, which is her current job. After finishing the dress, she packs it and goes to make the delivery, but before leaving, Bryn notices a round mark on the grass and decides to water her garden. Then, she gets into her car and drives to town, where we notice that she isn't greeted warmly. She continues on her way and drops it off at the mailbox. Afterward, she goes to the cemetery and we see her sitting beside Sarah Adams' grave, her mother. After staying for a while, she leaves the place, and the people present their don't talk to her. Heading to her car, she sees a couple, a policeman and a woman, and ends up hiding to avoid being seen by them. Later, we see her sitting on her property and writing in her planner. She was waiting for a delivery, and when the delivery person arrives near her house, they play with the package and leave it haphazardly at the entrance. Bryn retrieves her package and goes into her house. Then, we discover it's more pieces for her decorations, and she feels happy to have them. While she prepares her meal, the phone rings, but she prefers not to answer it. Later, she continues writing in her planner, which seems to be a song. Finally, she finishes and decides to go to bed. Still in the early hours, the lights strangely suddenly come on, and we hear the song on the record player. Then, the lights go out. A noise wakes Bryn up, and she gets up to check what happened. When she reaches the stairs, she realizes the lights don't turn on, and the front door of the house is open, with a shadow in the adjacent room. Terrified and thinking that someone has invaded her residence, she remains calm and doesn't scream. Bryn slowly returns to her room and even takes off her shoes to avoid making noise. She looks through the gaps between the rooms and realizes it's not a person. Even more frightened, she rushes back to her room before the creature sees her. Bryn grabs something from under her bed and accidentally makes noise. Hearing footsteps approaching, she hides beside the bed. When the being appears, we discover it's a humanoid creature. Fearing being found, Bryn goes under the bed and remains silent, with the creature on top of the bed. In total silence, Bryn sees the creature's feet, with multiple fingers supporting its entire body. The being emits a sound wave, as if it were a signal, then it exits the room through the window. Bryn quickly gets up and closes the window, fearing the creature might return. Bryn gathers some courage and leaves her room, using a hair straightener in case she needs to defend herself. Suddenly, she hears footsteps on the ceiling, and fearing the worst, she runs and closes the door. However, shortly after, the lights come on, and Bryn is terrified. She turns off things that make noise and then the lights. Upon seeing the landline phone, she walks over to it and attempts to call for help, but a noise stops her. Suddenly, the furniture starts to shift and move around her. She even tries to go to the bedroom, but the being is descending the stairs, so she heads to the kitchen and hides. She searches for the creature and sees it picking up the phone. The creature senses someone is there and opens the refrigerator door, trapping Bryn. The being then approaches her, gradually revealing itself, having a large hand and long fingers. When it shows its face, we see it's an alien. Terrified, Bryn pushes it away and runs. Unfortunately for her, the creature possesses telekinetic powers and, tearing off the door, hurls it at Bryn, who falls to the ground dazed. She gets up and tries to reach the adjacent room, and the creature follows closely behind her. The being destroys her art collection and then begins pulling Bryn by her legs using its power. The creature spins her in the air but suddenly stops. We soon see that Bryn grabbed a sharp object and luckily thrust it into the alien's head, killing it. Seeing that absurd and horrifying scene, Bryn begins to have a panic attack, but gradually she regains her composure. In the morning, we still see her lying in the room where the dead creature is. Carefully, she approaches and assesses the situation of the body, confirming it's dead. She covers it with a sheet. When she tries to call for help, she can't because there's no electricity in the house. She goes to her car, and to her dismay, she can't start it. Afterward, she takes a shower and tends to her wounds. Bryn gets dressed and then barricades the door with the sofa. Leaving her house, she rides her bike to town. However, on the way, she encounters an overturned pickup truck with no driver in sight. She goes to the house next door and notices that the house is destroyed, and the same round marks that were in her garden are also there. Scared by the entire situation, she goes to the police station and encounters the couple from before, Officer Collins and the woman with him, who looks at Bryn and spits in her face. Soon after, they leave. The police officers present their don't take any action. Apparently, no one cares about Bryn. Sad, she tries to get her bike but starts having another panic attack. We discover that, for some reason, Bryn suffers from emotional disorders, and certain triggers activate her anxiety. She attempts to breathe slowly and gradually calms down. Moments later, she purchases a bus ticket and boards it for a ride, wearing a cap and glasses to avoid being recognized. The bus on the road passes by some houses, and in the yards of these places, there are round marks. Bryn notices this and finds it very strange. Suddenly, inside the bus, a man approaches her seat, and suspicious of him, she gets up to move to another seat. However, the man grabs her and his throat emits non-human voices, as if something is inside him. Terrified, Bryn pushes him away but slips. She soon realizes it's not just the man acting strangely. The driver, seeing what's happening on the bus, quickly stops, but the man doesn't stop heading toward Bryn. So, fearing that, she gets off the bus and runs away. She later arrives at a private property and enters it. Further inside, she finds a temple, but it's closed, and next to it, a small cemetery. She quickly remembers that it's where Maud is buried. Suddenly, a storm begins to form in the city sky. Finding everything strange and fearful, Bryn runs to seek shelter. However, in one of the houses, she encounters people with their hands raised to the sky in frozen like statues, with something strange in their throats. Still not understanding what she saw, she returns to her residence, and upon arriving there, she looks at the alien's body and notices a slime coming from its mouth. When she follows it, she realizes leads to her garden. Suspicious of the approaching storm, Bryn enters her house and lights the lamps and fireplace while searching for a weapon to defend herself. Afterward, she locks herself inside, closing the windows and doors. Moments later, already at night, she hears something, and upon looking at the door covering, she observes that the nails are being easily removed. Bryn hides. Suddenly, a strong light appears, pushing the sofa and then levitating the dead creature's body, carrying it outside. The light goes out, and another one appears, as if it's inspecting the house. Terrified, Bryn goes into the basement, and another creature appears at the house's entrance. She tries to hide, but the strong light appears and opens the basement's exit door. Bryn hides and watches, realizing it's another being similar to the one she killed earlier. She grabs a pair of scissors and, unnoticed, goes under a table and remains silent. However, the creature is intelligent and soon surprises Bryn, who, upon seeing it, is frightened by the alien. She even tries to confront it with the scissors, but the being uses its power to pull the object away. It also pulls down a picture of Bryn with her sister. With this distraction, she runs upstairs. Unfortunately, another creature, smaller and with sharp claws, attacks her as soon as it sees her. To escape, Bryn bites the creature's arm, causing it to recoil, but it doesn't stop. It chases her, and to defend herself, Bryn throws the hot water she was heating on the stove, but that also doesn't stop the creature. She keeps it at bay using a pot for defense, but the strong light appears and almost crushes her, a light that has the power of attraction and repulsion. However, this light doesn't affect the alien's body, which easily passes through it and continues to pursue Bryn. She locks herself in her room, but the alien begins to destroy the door to get in. Bryn tries to escape through the window, but the being pulls her back. She uses a broken broom handle to pierce the creature, then, she hits it with a cupboard door. She goes outside, where she notices that she's being watched by another creature, even larger, with long legs. Not knowing what to do, Bryn attempts to flee, but the man from the bus is there and, possessed by something, grabs her and takes her to the creature. Suddenly, an alien spacecraft appears to capture the young woman, but fortunately, she escapes, causing the light to trap the man instead of her. This ends up breaking his bones. The ship quickly leaves the area, and the creature, seeing that it failed, angrily goes after Bryn. She runs for her life and narrowly escapes the monster. But not knowing where to go, she stands still in the middle of the garden. Suddenly, the creature appears above the house and emits a loud noise, a signal for the others to come to where it is. The creature descends and goes after Bryn. She enters and passes through the car, and luckily, makes the creature get trapped inside, but she is still injured on her back. Bryn realizes that the fuel is leaking, so she takes a lighter and sets the car on fire. She moves away, and the car explodes, causing the creature's death. The strong light again appears and pursues her, but Bryn quickly runs inside the house and takes refuge in her room. Moments later, one of the creatures opens the room and enters, searching for Bryn, who stays hidden in silence. The alien sees the photos of the sisters, and in distraction, Bryn tries to attack it but is repelled out of the room. She runs and goes to another room, but this time she is captured by a red light that paralyzes her and throws her up. The alien approaches her and releases a parasite from its mouth, the same one that controlled the man. It forces Bryn to open her mouth, and the parasite enters her throat. Fortunately for Bryn, it was all just a horrifying nightmare, and with that, she becomes calm and relieved. To be sure, she goes downstairs and checks her house to see if everything is in place. Suddenly, she hears her sister's voice and happily watches her coming toward her, but she can't see clearly in her eyes. Finding it strange and knowing that her sister had passed away a long time ago, Bryn returns to consciousness and pulls the alien parasite from her throat. A noise torments her, and the spaceship appears again. A light protects the parasite, and then another being begins to form there. Terrified, Bryn runs, not realizing that the being has a human appearance. Next, we can see that in various places, many other ships are going through this same terrifying process. Bryn continues walking alone in the forest. Suddenly a being with its appearance emerges and stands in front of her, soon attacking her with a wooden stake to kill her. Fortunately, Bryn had a blade and pierces the alien's neck, resulting in the creature's death. Then she continues walking on the road covered in dense fog, and further ahead, she encounters the living creature, the same one that had exploded with the car. In the blink of an eye, she is sucked into the light and abducted into the spaceship. Inside, she is surrounded by various alien creatures who observe her closely. One of them, using its finger, touches her forehead, and everything goes blank for Bryn. Soon, we see memories of her past, where something terrible happened in her home. While arguing in the forest, Bryn accidentally hits her sister in the head with a rock, unfortunately killing her, which is why people treated her with contempt. The scene changes, and we see Bryn watching her younger self, who sadly writes something for her deceased sister. She soon touches herself, making everything calmer and with a peaceful expression. And nearby, the beings watch her. This is the technology and power of the beings who could see her mind. Then they talk to each other, looking at the sleeping Bryn. Their dominating mind decides something, so Bryn is taken back to Earth and left on the road. Days later, Bryn returns to her routine, with a smile on her face, being a happier person, and this time people talk to her, but they are still possessed, and it doesn't bother Bryn. One day she participates in a town party and is even invited to dance with the participants. The movie ends, and unfortunately, it's nothing more than an illusion created by the beings who now dominate their lives and apparently the whole world for some sinister purpose.